Okay, so basically I'm going to start one by one. The first one is going to be Jemima. So Jemima is with us. She's from Abuja, a very interesting ecosystem in Nigeria, working on really interesting things. She's working with the management of Coven AI, doing things that have to do with artificial intelligence and many other interesting things. So we're going to learn a little bit from Jemima. Other than that, we have our second person would be Ido Tal. Ido, fellow, I think, Israeli, and also now in the USA. Ido is the founder of Raise the Round. Probably the person you want to speak with if you're looking to raise investment, because Ido has a lot of experience in this. I've read his profile. We're talking a lot about investment coaching that Ido does a lot in the USA. He's a Berkeley mentor in the University of Berkeley. His company was acquired by Google, so we can probably learn a lot from his experience. He's been working in Google as well, so he's been a startup founder and a Google employee, and also a serial founder. So those are exactly the people that we enjoy learning from. And yeah, we have Dalia Ibrahim also from Egypt. Really nice to have you here. Dalia is the CEO of Nachdet Misr publishing house. She's also the founder and the CEO of Ed Ventures. She knows a lot about ed tech, which is interesting for incubators and accelerator. Board member in Endeavor and in Jazz. Dalia is also doing a lot of activities that have to do with women entrepreneurship, on how to basically bridge the gap and be in a situation that we have more women as entrepreneurs. It's so important for this region. If women are going to be innovating even more than men, the economic development over here is going to be amazing. So that's something that Dalia is working on. She's also an expert in digital marketing. And last but not least, we have Dr. Ayman Ismail, also from Egypt, from the American University in Cairo. He's an associate professor in Abdul Latif Jamil Endowed Chair of Entrepreneurship. He's also the founding director of AUC Venture Lab. And Ayman has a lot of knowledge on economic development. He has a PhD in international economic development. And he's running university programs for accelerators and incubators, really giving us a lot of information about the connection between universities and accelerator and incubators. So that's great. So first of all, let's start a little bit. Maybe we'll just go by order and kind of like maybe start with the first question. That is the biggest question of them all. This is the reason why I'm here personally, why I was so interested in this panel, to finally understand what is the difference between an incubator and accelerator. That's my dream for today. If I manage to do that, we're good. It's almost as big as a question as what is a startup. Nobody knows what's a startup. Also, not a lot of people know what is an incubator and accelerator. And to kick us off with this question, maybe I'll first of all ask Ayman, because you have so much experience in universities and so on. What is really this difference? Maybe you can elaborate and give us the eternal answer.
Great. Good morning, and good morning, everybody. So first, I don't know why this is an important question, but I'll tell you what I know about it. And a lot of people are mixing it. But I'll tell you how to think about it actually beyond that differentiation. Incubators started, people started talking about them about 30 years ago. Programs come in a variety of shapes. Some of them target tech-related. Some of them target things that are not tech-related. The idea is companies at the early age are very fragile. Think about a baby who's born prematurely. So you want to put them in that environment, protective environment, that gives them support and that helps them basically protect them in the early stage where the failure chance is high, and maybe give them some services that go along with it. The model has been around for a very long time. People have done so many different varieties inside universities, commercial, government-led, companies-led, NGO-led, and so on. Accelerators is a very different model. I think the first one that started with it was Y Combinator in the US. It's usually targeting tech startups, most of the time in the ICT space. And the question is, the founders found that if you're starting a business, it takes you probably a year to get to be investable. So how can we accelerate that process? So they said, okay, let's bring the entrepreneurs, very smart people, put them in a very intense environment, get them to follow the lean startup, develop a product very quickly. And because the founders of Y Combinator were actually previous entrepreneurs, that we have good connections with investors. Within 3 to 4 months, we'll put them in front of investors and accelerate the process of them getting from idea to funding. Okay? So if you are someone who's looking around, the programs that support, both of them are entrepreneurship support programs. If you are interested in a startup as an entrepreneur, you should look at varieties of programs. There might be the one-day program that gets you up and speed on some things. There might be the 3-month program like Acceleration. There might be longer incubation programs that actually give you kind of patient support. And there might be other types. So the differentiation honestly doesn't make a difference. What matters for you as an entrepreneur is, how's that program helping me reach what I want? If you're someone who wants to support entrepreneur, an NGO, government company, whatever, design a program that fits with what you have. At AUC, the American University in Cairo, we started working with entrepreneurs around 12, 13 years ago, 2010 specifically, growing an ecosystem inside the university and supporting an ecosystem in Egypt. So first we started with a lot of training and awareness, build the foundation, get people exposed, and then we wanted to have deep dive support with entrepreneurs. So we started our own acceleration program on campus. It's a very similar acceleration program to whatever you would find anywhere, except that we don't give money and take equity. That's the only difference. Most of the acceleration programs give some money and take some equity, 5, 6, 7%, whatever it is, and maybe give anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000. So we're trying to build an ecosystem that connects university students, faculty knowledge to the entrepreneurs from outside and help them develop those companies. So that's basically what we do, and that's what it fits with our mission. And whatever organization you're in, you're trying to build a program, figure out what fits with your mission, who are you trying to help, and design that for them. You don't need to follow the mold of this is an acceleration, this is an incubation, or even figure out why does it matter. It's like figure out what's impactful and follow that.
Excellent, that's great. So we heard about what's happening in Egypt. Idom, you have a lot of experience in the USA. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's going on in this world of acceleration versus incubation. You also have experience in universities. Can you elaborate on the topic about what's going on currently in the West in the model of incubation versus acceleration?
Yes, for sure. Hi, everyone. So I think that startups need help, right? When I'm startup, what's juiced me is like acceleration, right? Like you need to have a good pair of sneakers and to run fast against competition. So if a startup, let's say, raise money on go to an accelerator, even get $100,000 on a $5 million valuation, give 7%. So it's $350,000 worth of shares, $100,000 in shares, $250,000. It's help expected, right? They almost bought the service of the accelerator for $250,000. And they need help. And they need help for somebody who's done that, have connections, know the industry, and can help them get into the target audience and not follow make sure they don't do the mistake and help them accelerate. So it's very popular. Like we work with a lot of accelerator, like me, myself, and my team with UC Berkeley, Stanford Business School, and many others, supporting their founders, making sure they're on the right path, avoiding the mistakes I made, which I made a lot. Did I answer your question?
No, that's great, super. I want to know, do we have any questions from the crowd about accelerator versus, I don't know if this one is working, but do we have any questions from the crowd about acceleration or so on that you want to ask? Probably your questions are much more interesting. So I'll just take one question from the crowd and then go back. So yeah, please, sir.
Yes, thank you. My question is with Dr. Emma. I just want for you to give us concretely, is there any design model for incubator and accelerator programs? Because I work across Africa. I work a lot with incubators and accelerator programs, but definitely most of the structures, they don't have any design business model for themselves. Thank you.
Okay, so let me answer the question from two sides. Thank you for the question. First thing, we've been doing our business for now 9 years. Next year is going to be 10th year. And we've learned a lot about what to do and what not to do, lots of mistakes and lots of good things. So we're actually running a program now to transfer, as a university, we try to transfer knowledge. We're running a program to train the accelerator and incubator managers across Egypt. We ran it twice, and we're doing a round across Africa. And we're going to probably do another round across MENA. So let's connect after that. Would love to connect you with that round. And we have a lot of content around it. The first thing, if you're designing a program like this, is figuring out who are you trying to help and what assets do you have to offer them. So do you have knowledge? Do you have money? Do you have space? Do you have connections? What do you have to offer them? And what kind of people are you trying to help them? Are they tech entrepreneurs? Are they energy entrepreneurs? Are they SME entrepreneurs? And make sure you have a match. Second thing, design your program. What are you going, services specifically are you going to provide them? Is it mentorship? Is it training? Is it access to space? Is it connections to network, introductions? So you design the service offering that's based on your competency and what they need. The third thing is you need to figure out your business model, revenues and expenses. Most acceleration and incubation programs actually are not very profitable and definitely not in the short term. If you're relying on equity, you've got to wait until this company exits. That might be 5, 7, 10 years, especially if you're starting from the early. So that's a very long time. So you have to have a source of funding. If you're developmental, then you also have to have another sort of funding. Are you government-based, NGO-based, corporate spin-off? Like Dalia will talk a lot about that. Or coming from a developmental angle. So you've got to figure out what is the cost of the process. Cost of accelerating or incubating a company is very expensive. So how are you going to fund that over the long term? So those are questions you need to do. If you answer the questions, you're going to have a very nice program design that will help you.
Excellent. We're going to go to the crowd a little bit in a little bit of a while. Dalia, now we have a quick question for you about how do you see accelerators and incubators helping startups? Why should startups even consider, let's say, going to accelerators and incubators? Can you elaborate on this topic from your experience?
Okay, hi everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you today. It's a very important and interesting topic that actually supports the whole ecosystem. And of course, it depends from one country to the other and the level of development of the ecosystem. As Dr. Ayman have just been saying that AUC, for example, is in its 9th year, and the ecosystem in our region is developing, still developing. Yes, it's developing it at a very high rate, but still in the development phase. Coming back to the very important question from the startup point of view, as Dr. Ayman even have been saying that you have to decide first as a startup what you really want to do, what you really need. And then you have to know more about what is there in the market. There are different types of incubators with different programs. Accelerators are more adaptive if they are really doing their work properly. They are more adaptive to the needs of the startups. It's not a settled program that they go through. Incubator takes the startup from the ideation sometimes, and sometimes from the minimum viable product, and works with them till they have a real model, and they can get ready to the market and give them some kinds of training how to present their work properly, how to understand the market, how to do proper research. So it takes them from the very basic. The accelerators, as Dr. Ayman even have been saying, and the name is very clear, it takes them very quickly to another stage, getting them ready for the first investment. So as a startup, I have to make sure what I really need. What is the gap that I want to fill? I'm just starting the ecosystem, trying to understand, trying to test what I'm doing. I'm on the right path or not. So they will move to the incubator. And if they have a minimal viable product, that they can go to an accelerator to help them for the growth. From another side of the hat of the incubator or accelerator provider, Dr. Ayman spoke about different kinds of incubators and accelerators. Some of them are governmental, some are NGOs, and some are corporate, which is really rare. And this is the one that we are presenting. So if anyone in the field of education technology, generally, it's better for them to go to someone specialized. We, as Nahdat Masr, it's a 84 years company. in publishing, education, cultural, digital, animation, all this stuff related to content and education and personal development generally. So if anyone is interested in the field of personal development and education, and they have in the region someone specialized like us, we are, up till now, we are the only specialized incubator, accelerator, and investor in EdTech. So for them to go to such an incubator or accelerator or investor, it's better for them to get more knowledge. So they can get market research easily, can get experts in all fields. If they want content providers, if they want software, if they want animation, whatever they want related to the field, they can be supported from this specialized incubator or accelerator or even investor that can connect them and get them very good deals. Same case with the fintech and other industries. So if there is an incubator and accelerator that specialized in the field that the startup is looking for, definitely it gives them a very high edge and give them more insight and even makes them aware of what is happening in the ecosystem generally. This idea is very repetitive. It's a late move. You should change the business model. This will not work. So this shortens for them the path and makes it more quicker and more efficient.
Excellent, that's great. Jemima, I'm moving to you. You're from Abuja, a very interesting ecosystem, a growing ecosystem, but not necessarily one ecosystem with a lot of investors and so on. You probably have a lot of friends that took the accelerator path. Can you tell us a little bit about how did you see that those accelerators are impacting entrepreneurs and their chances of success in places like Nigeria?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the question. So interestingly, I'm from Abuja, Nigeria, and in the past 5 years, there's been a lot of accelerators come to Africa. The ecosystem in Abuja is really great. We have Y Combinators, we have Techstars, and I mean, because of like the situation in Nigeria where like the government is not really interested in like startups and all of this stuff, and startups have to struggle a lot. So investors really like to come to Africa, and I mean, I was in a session yesterday, and the Ghana Expo Promotion Export Minister said that he had a research, and from Ivy League schools, the statistics shows that Nigerians are like top in result. And I mean, Nigerians are like some of the smartest people you would find. So investors pretty much like to come to Africa. And I mean, it's really great. So I work for a startup that's into AI and data science. We try to train talents and corporations so that they can migrate and so that they can like be part of like accelerators and incubators. And thus far, I mean, we've been able to support and encourage some people who have been trained by us, and they've been able to get over like $10 million US. So to your question, I think it's really great because I mean there's been access to mentorship, venture capitals, investment. So I mean because of like we have a lot of electricity problems in Africa as well. So these accelerators and incubators provide like co-working spaces. So I mean people can just go and partner and network with other startups, and it's really great. I mean take my company for instance. We started in 2018 and we're an EdTech. We train people on AI, data science, and chatbot engineering, and we've been able to raise over $500,000 US, and I mean, we keep improving and growing and co-founding other companies. So I mean, I think the ecosystem is really great, and it has helped over. I mean, I was just checking the news the other day, and I saw that I mean, Y Combinator keeps coming back to Africa, and it's not going to stop anytime soon because the ecosystem is great. We have smart talent, we have people who are hardworking and ready to work and ready to help and impact the government. Impacts the society. So I hope I answered your question.
Excellent, that's great. I'll just say that we are in Startup Link ranking the startup ecosystems of 1,000 cities, 100 countries. Nigeria now and Lagos are ranked #1 in Africa. This is definitely an ecosystem that we should really pay attention to. It's a star, and it grows in amazing pace in Africa. So you're probably in the right place. Nigeria is really an interesting ecosystem. Ido, I'll turn to you maybe, and I'll ask you about what basically What is the scene of accelerators currently in the USA? What is working? Which one is the best one? I think we mentioned it a few times, but maybe you can validate it for us. Like, what's basically the most popular model of accelerators currently in the West? And also, maybe if you can talk about the world, but basically on the cutting edge of San Francisco and all those locations, what's working now? What do you see as a trend in acceleration and incubation?
For sure, would like to elaborate. Just before that, sounds so inspiring, all the three countries. We are not active in any one of those countries. Would love to support, help, and connect to the Silicon Valley. This is great. I personally had 5 startups. This is a journey. There are some startup people here, right? Some of we work with. And imagine doing it 5 times. It's a lot of ups and downs. So I salute all the founders and all the people that support them on the process. This is just awesome. My personal story, after 5 startups, we were very lucky that Google acquired us. And being an executive at Google and managing apps for over 600 million users, maybe it's my 50th crisis, the age. But after that, I asked, okay, what do I do now? And for me, it's minimum footprint, maximum impact. Like, how can we make the world a better place? And so we came up with the model of why won't we bring all the knowledge of 5 startups, raising money from hundreds of investors, and really like how to pitch, how to close, how to create deal flow of investors, manage a meeting, how to close, like all those things, and just give it to accelerators. Just give the program, partner with them, and support and affect millions of people. If you have a problem with electricity, we should bring one of our startups that works on that. And create like a 10x together kind of environment. And I think that in the Silicon Valley, the question is, you see more and more people who made a lot of money who just say, and they don't want to buy Prada. They are not shopping in malls, like they go with simple sneakers. They just want to make the world a better place. And this is the type of investors that will put money in good causes and will support entrepreneurs. And of course, the top accelerators, it's Y Combinator, 500 startups, and Techstars, and all of that. But that's really on the top of the top. Like, what happened with another 80 million entrepreneurs that working now to raise money? How can we support them? How can we support all of that? And you need to have a scalable model, and I think that through accelerators across the globe to provide them the knowledge and the know-how and the connections, and sometimes even the mindset of entrepreneur, the tenacity in order to just make it happen, get shit done, right? It's all about that, how fast you can execute. I throw an idea, and I want to throw it in the crowd. Can I throw just one idea? There's a problem in Ukraine, right? So I love domains. Who here love domains? I bought the domain, there's someone there, hireukrainian.com. I just bought the domain and I open it. Let's do hackathon. Let's build something. So the company here, last night, I threw an idea, like 7 hours later, I got a whole proposal using their technology. They contribute. So if anyone here wants to help, all Ukrainians, millions left. They're all now sitting in Germany somewhere with a laptop. They all need to make a living, to work. They lost their jobs. And we have a lot of US companies looking for employees, data entry, not just engineers. So anyone here, I know it's not the subject, I'm just opening up, wants to help us put hireukrainian.com on the map. I already brought hundreds of open positions, and welcome to join and support us. And I think this is my example of understanding accelerator in the Silicon Valley, like really wants to do good in the world, and that's part of that.
That's great. Super. I'll go to Ayman and Dalia. First of all, Ayman, a quick question about VCs and corporations. They're very involved now in the space of accelerators, just like universities in a way. What do you think should be the role of VCs and the corporate when connected with acceleration programs? And later I'll ask Dalia about this as well. So, Ayman.
Okay, so what's happening with VCs? Probably 5 years ago, we had 1 or 2 VCs in Egypt. This year, we've probably got more than a dozen. A lot of them opened this year, last year, last 3 years. Same thing here in Dubai. Now we've got actually a very active venture capital industry that's happening in Egypt and in the region, plus a lot of the investors coming from other parts of the world, having the local counterparts, they're starting to actually tag along and start investing in that space. Our job is to produce a good pipeline for them. So that's where we see our mission. We want to see more investable startups. Why? Because they add value to the community. They're actually helping solve problems. They're creating jobs. They're creating a more competitive, tech-based economy. They're solving real problems on the ground, whether in mobility or in finance or in operations or in supply chain. So that's what we want to see. Everyone is playing from their own angle. You have to figure out what's your strength that you're contributing. As a university, we have a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of networks, really good network of alumni locally and globally. I think half of our alumni work in other countries, whether in Europe, US, GCC, Africa, Asia. So that's the value that we bring. We try to be very selective. It's an exclusive program. So far, we've supported more than 300 startups. Now we've actually upped the numbers. We have around 40 to 50 startups every year. And the quality has been increasing substantially. When we started, most of what we had were graduation projects for students. Today, most of what we have are ideas by mid-career professionals or serial entrepreneurs who actually have a deep understanding of their sectors and problems and who are able to build companies. That space is huge and it's different. We want to bring them, support them in getting the first move in going to market and connect them with VCs who actually look for pre-screened startups that we actually have our kind of stamp of approval. Just one thing to celebrate. Today is a very special day for us because one of our graduates, Swivel, is actually going to be ringing the bell in NASDAQ doing their IPO. Literally today. Yesterday they had the General Assembly approve their, for the SPAC approved their IPO, and today they're going to be ringing the bell probably in 4 or 5 hours. So very special day. This is a company that started by a very young man, serial entrepreneur, I think at the age of 24 when he started. 3 years later, they were actually going multi-country, and now I think 4 or 5 years later, they're doing their IPO. And it's the first actually unicorn IPO out of the region to list in NASDAQ. So very proud of them. And this is the kind of companies we want to see more and more coming out, going global, regional, transforming what they're doing. They just made an acquisition in Latin America, another one in Europe, and several partnerships. And now they're actually creating a global footprint. So that's what we want to see happening.
Excellent, that's great. I'll just say something general that what Ayman did now, celebrating the success of startups, is so important. And yeah, let's give it.
And by the way, the clapping is for them, not for us. We just happen to be there, but they are the ones who've done amazing, amazing, amazing work. Mustafa Andil and his co-founder.
Yeah, to this point, basically, when we see our fellow entrepreneurs are succeeding, we just have to support them and celebrate them, because then our entire ecosystem is growing when we do that. And every one of us should kind of like celebrate the success of our ecosystem, get those sample of success, because that's going to bring the success to us as well. It's all a flywheel, so that's really interesting. Dalia, I'll turn to you and maybe ask you also, you've been working with companies like Disney and National Geographic and so on. How do you see the involvement of corporate in the world of accelerators and incubators?
As all of you know, there are several kinds of venture capitals. Of course, there are different stages from seed fund to A, series A, B, C, and D, etc. And also there is the type of the corporate venture, which we really represent. When companies grow to a certain extent and they have a vision of more growth and more potential, they start thinking of having their own venture capital. And this is exactly what has happened with Nahdat Nasr Group. I started first 8 years as a mentor. I tapped this ecosystem. Actually, I was amazed with the level of enthusiasm, creativity, and professionalism of the startups. And then we decided as a family members and owners to have our own venture capital, corporate venture capital. But when we started in this field, we decided, as Dr. Ayman just said, we have to have a point of strength, which was our know-how, our connections. So we were specialized in education technology. This is number one. Number two, when we looked around us in the ecosystem 5 years ago, actually nobody was taking care of the ed tech sector. There was very, very few number of startups with some ideation phase startups. Very rare of them were really ready even to go to incubators. So we decided to take the whole cycle, start from incubation to acceleration to investment. And here comes the question that everyone should ask for themselves. Why I'm doing an incubator? Incubator, this means that you are going to spend a lot of money, and most probably there is no gain. Accelerator, you are going to spend some money. Some international organizations ask for a price for this, take money. Others take small equity. So there must be something for sustainability. But for corporate ventures, it's a different story. You want really to get this ecosystem to be developed. So 5 years ago, we decided to start by an incubation phase and take it through. We started by very limited number of startups. We started supporting them, giving them the awareness. We started even to make awareness about the concept of the importance of education technology. Nowadays, after especially COVID, which accelerated this very much, a lot of investors in the region, outside the region, are concentrating on the concept of education technology startups. So we had to take the lead and have our incubator, although it is costly and it is not the role of the venture capital. Generally, accelerators and incubators are not the role of venture capitals, especially if they are, generally they are looking for different sectors. They are not sector specific. It's not the role to develop the startups and work with them, take their hand and train them and give them connections and all that and build a business. They are here to invest in good startups and wait for the exit or for a second round and so on. But in very rare cases like ours, since we have a corporate venture specialized in a certain sector, we see the gap. If we didn't help from the very beginning and take startups from the incubation phase, we won't have a pipeline. And we are not building a pipeline for ourselves, it's for the whole ecosystem, and this is what is happening. For this, we spend a lot of money on the awareness, not only on the incubation and acceleration. You will ask definitely a question, which is this getting you back? Have you seen any feedback about what you are being, all this spending of money? Is this crazy, just throwing your money? No, we are not. A lot of our startups now have a second and a third round of investment, and the ecosystem now, Adventures, is ranked #1 in the region as a venture capital specialized in education. So we took the lead. The ecosystem is developing. Our startups, a lot of them are having several cycles of investment. So I believe we are on the right track and on the right timing, especially after COVID that accelerated things. Other than this, VCs should not invest time and effort in accelerators or incubators except they have a certain vision or they are building the market.
Excellent, that's great. I'll just tell everyone that Cairo in Egypt is becoming a very, very important ecosystem. If you're trying to look at the regional level of ecosystems, we talked about Nigeria, Lagos mainly, Cairo, of course, Dubai. So it's really interesting to see the centers, the regional centers of entrepreneurship. And all of you are in the right place. Dubai is an excellent place, but don't forget, Cairo, Lagos, just a few examples, of course, Tel Aviv. Yeah, I'll go maybe to Jemima and ask you a little bit about, you're in a growing ecosystem, Abuja. What is the influence of those organizations on your ecosystem? Like, there was almost nothing there a few years ago on startups, and now everything is booming. How do you see the accelerators and incubators helping the ecosystem of Abuja to grow and to prosper and to close the gaps with Lagos, for example?
Okay, thank you for the question. And I mean, great thing you're doing in Cairo. Like I said, some years back, I mean, it was just a bunch of Nigerians complaining, those in diaspora and those in Nigeria complaining about how the government is not working, how things are faulty, So I mean, since accelerators and incubators started, there's a lot of growth in the tech space, in the ed tech space, crypto, even like research even shows that banks, like conservative banks, are going to be out soon because I mean the average millennial or Gen Z is interested in crypto and wants to do Bitcoin and all those things. So there's so much growth even in the healthcare. I mean there are startups trying to help people because there's lots of malaria and all the other things. There's startups trying to help, and I mean, there's so much growth. Like, take for instance, Coven Works. Some years back, I feel like this is a global problem whereby the education system just teaches basic things, and people leave school and they're clueless, don't know where to start from. And because of the state in Nigeria, what we do is that we train people on artificial intelligence, data science, chatbot engineering. And so these people, even though they study physics or political science in school, and they don't even have to have a mathematics background, can just take the course and start to build chatbots, get tech jobs. And I mean, so there's also like Lagos is the center of innovation in Nigeria. But Lagos is overcrowded. There's so many cars on the road. It's just too populated. It's too large. And so with our platform, we enable people get jobs remotely. So you can stay in your house, get a tech job, and you don't need to go out. You don't need to be in traffic for 4 hours or 5 hours. So all those things, making life better, making livelihood better for the average person. So there's been a lot of growth. And in Abuja, where I stay, as well, there's not a lot of traffic, but there are problems, like there's electricity problems. We have some startups going into solar because Nigeria is very hot. We have a lot of sun in Nigeria. So we have startups using solar to enable electricity and just make life easy. So you don't need to even go too far in Nigeria. Just go to the average person, the average youth, and ask, okay, how has startup accelerators or incubators helped the country? And there'll be a lot to say. That's all I have to say. I hope I answered the question.
That's great, really good. Ido, we'll turn back to you and ask you, you're advising startups a lot. When they ask you, should I go to an accelerator? I know it's a very long answer about it depends and so on, but what generally advice do you give startups when they think, should I commit to an accelerator, yes or no? What would you think?
Yes.
But all of them or not all of them?
We need help, right? Go to the right people. It's almost like if you learn yoga, you need to have a yoga instructor, right? You can learn on YouTube. When you learn basketball, right? Soccer, anything. If you want to be professional, go to the professional. It's not just accelerator. Go to people who have done it before, many times, love to teach, and you like their style. That's how I choose a mentor.
That's great, good. How do you validate Ido? Is there anything on the check? Let's say I'm a startup founder and I want to pick a mentor and an accelerator. How would your check look like to make sure that it's the right person or the right organization for you?
Sure, they need to have experience. Like if you learn yoga, you want to learn from a yoga instructor that she's really good or he's really good, right? And the same basketball. You will never learn basketball with somebody who just watch basketball on TV. So the same about startups. Just find somebody that's really done that many times, have a PhD in founders fighting. They already fight with the founder. They know how to solve the problem. They have investor who came to them who asked the money back, how to deal with that. They went for meetings and they say, oh, it was a great meeting, but the investor ghosted them. They did it 1,500 times. And they learned, and they know. So if you have an accelerator with people in your field that have done it many times, and you like their style, and they love to transfer the knowledge for you. Because I have a lot of friends. I met, founder of Waze, Viber, you name it, like a lot of founders that they did an amazing job, but they are not so open to coach others. Now they're doing other stuff. They're philanthropy and all, but not coaching startup. Find somebody that loves doing that, put their energy, their mind into that, and join that accelerator. And there's a lot of them in your field.
That's great. We'll turn to Dr. Ayman and ask a little bit about, I think there is a lot of confusion about the role of universities in the world of startups. Nobody is really clear about should they take ownership of their startup ecosystem, how active should they be, should they think about the growth of their ecosystem, for example, Cairo, should they think about the growth of the students and advise them to go somewhere else, to Silicon Valley and so on. Can you let us know what would be a good strategy as far as you're concerned for a university when taking an active role in acceleration, incubation, and startup ecosystem development?
So, great questions. Modern universities are probably, they go back more than 400, 500 years old. Some of the oldest institutions that you find around. And their business model has been mostly initially around teaching. Those are places where you find very knowledgeable people, you go there to learn. And then started emerging more around research, especially in technology, where you're putting a lot of money for people to create that knowledge, that technical know-how that can actually advance knowledge. Now, universities are thinking actually internally, like a startup, about their business model. Can we continue to survive, especially that Dalia was talking about EdTech. There's a huge pressure that's coming from education, from technology-based startups, that is going to affect universities. Just a piece of prediction, by the way, I was working on a task force in our university thinking about its future. I think in the next 5 years to 10 years, half of the universities around the world, especially in the US, are going to shut down. Especially the low-quality ones. The big ones are actually going to grow and get bigger, and the community ones are going to do okay. The mid-tier ones that don't have a clear value proposition are going to shut down. Why? Because it's going to be better to receive the same education online. Much cheaper, much more scalable, unless you want the brand of the Harvard, or you want the small community college where you get the expertise next door that can coach you and mentor you. The middle is going to disappear. So many universities are trying to think about what's our new role. If you have knowledge, you have connections, startups become, or creating that new economy becomes a very interesting space for you. You want to actually help create new companies that are going to monetize the knowledge, the networks, the assets that you have as a university. So at AUC, we've been thinking about this for probably now a decade and a half, specifically about how to do that in an Egypt context. But I know, I did my education at MIT. It's been doing that for decades and decades. You need to figure out what's your role. Some universities are starting to make investments. Some of them are building acceleration. It's just like executive education. Decades ago, it was not part of universities. Now it's a core part of universities. So we have that asset, and we want to figure out how do we actually help change our mission so that you can serve the community in building companies, and at the same time, you actually provide more sustainability for the universities with their missions. Internally, we've introduced more academic programs around entrepreneurship, more undergraduate executive education, and so on. And we've got our own internal ecosystem connecting with everybody, helping the outside ecosystem. And now people are starting to think about investment. We've been talking about it a decade ago, but not everybody was a believer in it. Now they're starting to think about it. So the role of universities in that space is actually work in progress. And there's some universities, the deeper, especially US-based research ones, are kind of reinventing how universities are playing in that role. Stanford, UCLA, MIT, Chicago, and the like. And I think that's going to be a huge area coming there.
Excellent, thank you. Dalia, we're getting close to the end, but maybe you can tell us the big question: should a founder give up their equity and give it a little bit, give a percentage to the accelerator? What's your idea over here about sharing equity as a startup founder? Can you elaborate on this?
Actually, I believe this question, when we hear what Idio had just said, it's very clear. You need the know-how. You need to do it right. If you are very keen about not losing very few percentages of your equity, because this is your project, this is your baby, you will never grow, and this is not the mindset even of the startup who aims to exit. So for a startup, first of all, they have to ask the main question of why. Why am I going to go through this accelerator? And why this, not the other one? Some of them just take money. If I can afford to pay money for getting the knowledge and the know-how and all this stuff, then fine. If not, I'm ready to give an equity for having this value. Is there a real value for what I am going to learn from the accelerator or not? Or even not only the accelerator, angel investors. I as a person, I invest on my own as an angel investor. As an angel investor, not only accelerator, it's not only the value of money that you give to the startup. It's the know-how, it's the mentoring, it's the connections, other things. So from a startup point of view, they must make their own calculations. What is in it for me to give such a piece of my company to anyone? Accelerator, angel investor, or other investor. So the value, the why, and when I'm going to decide to do this, and at what value. Of course, they have to be smart enough not to give a big chunk of their equity, but there is a calculation that each startup can do it by himself or herself at a different stage. If they can sustain with their own money, then fine. If they can grow very quickly, the concept of startup is growing quickly. If they can grow quickly without having an external support of finance, then fine. But generally, the ecosystem of startups is based on having other investors coming along quickly and injecting a lot of money so they can be much more quicker and accelerate their process so they can be the leaders in the market. This is the game. The game is the time and the proper know-how and the quality.
Excellent. That's great. Ido, a quick question for you. When a startup arrives to you about the equity question, what would you say in this case?
Negotiate.
Nice. That's great.
Like, see what you get, see what you're willing to pay, negotiate, and find the help. I saw many cases that founders got diluted too much, and then they negotiated to get more shares allocation. I think it's more important to keep control in your company. So if you bring an accelerator or an early investor in, make sure that you either make them invest on safe or have very clear voting rights agreements in place. You want to keep control in your company.
Good. Jemima, maybe the last question for you would be, as a startup founder in a relatively developing ecosystem, you don't have the access to venture capital and so on. What would you advise a founder to do based on your experience? You've been involved in a few really interesting startups. Should they go for an accelerator? And if not, if they don't have an accelerator, let's say, available, maybe Ido will open one, hopefully in Abuja soon. What should they do if they don't have those options available? What would be your quick answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, so I think both of them said something around, it revolves around like what the startup founder is looking out for. So it depends on, I mean, one case study is different from the other case study. So if a startup founder decides that, okay, they don't want an accelerator or to be part of an incubator, I think if they have great networking skills and like maybe a strong attitude, they love a lot of courage, good network, I mean, maybe like they could just probably like interact with people, go for, I mean, expos like this, and network, I mean, get funding themselves, or maybe partners. So in Africa, in Nigeria precisely, we have some startups who have passed the growth stage. So we have Paystack, we have Flutterwave, we have some really big startups. So I mean, I think they won't mind partnering. So I mean, instead of like an accelerator or an incubator, a startup founder can say, okay, I want to partner with this person, and yeah, decide, negotiate, like he said, negotiate and determine like what's in it for both parties. So I think, yeah, either of those might be useful.
Excellent. I really like the advice about the networking, because the best things that happen to startups is from random encounters. That's what I noticed. You meet someone accidentally, and this person can totally change your startup path. So that's really interesting. I'm just going to ask if we have time for questions to the crowd. I don't know what's our situation. We have a few more minutes. we'll take one question, and maybe more if we have time. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Olebin. I'm from DRC. My name is Kevin Olebin. I'm from DRC. DRC, we speak French. I have two questions, but I'll ask just one. What is the biggest mistake a startup can make? If you can give us the advice as a mentor, as professional, what is the biggest mistake an entrepreneur or a startup can make for help us to avoid that mistake?
So what we're going to do for this one is ask just one sentence from each one. What would be your sentence of the biggest mistake? Let's start with maybe Ido.
I think I did about 2,000 mistakes, type of mistake for my startups. The biggest one is not validating my idea with the market. Because usually when it's my ideas, they're stupid. You have to validate it.
Anyone has another idea over here that want to share with us in one sentence, the biggest mistake of a startup? Dalia.
This is the biggest mistake. You live your dream without testing the market. You build your dream, and then you find it's a repetitive idea.
That's great.
Disaster.
Ayman?
The same theme, but just a little bit generalizing it, thinking that you have the right answers without actually going and listening, learning from the customers, but from your team, other people, mentors, other people around you. So listen, try to learn, pivot, change based on the feedback you're getting.
Excellent. Jemima, from your experience, what did you see?
I think all the answers are right, but from my experience, because I'm a human resource specialist, I think a great mistake might be not hiring great talent from start. Some founders like to think that till they get funding before they start to hire great people. If you don't have they don't have to be a lot. 3 people, 4 people who are sound, who know the onions, would be good to go. So if you don't have that, and you want to run, it might be a problem.
That's amazing. So great people, find great people, validate the market, build for others, not for yourself. Amazing. Do we have time for more questions, or we're done? Excellent. So thank you, everyone. It was really a pleasure. Hope to see you all build great things. Good luck.